Karen Berzanski, Remaining Curious About What Might Be Possible, subtitled A Healing Journey Like No Other. This is episode 94 on Alternative Health Tools Podcast. My name is John Beethan. I'm a co-host and also a producer for Alternative Health Tools Podcast. And I'm across the pond here in the San Diego, USA area.
And I'm Lisa Victoria, and I'm across the other side of the pond in a little market town called Towcester, which is just outside London. And I'm the other co-host from across the pond.
Yeah, and Lisa has absolutely been fabulous coming on as the host, but now she's got to give it up as a co-host, which is fine. So the whole reason we're doing this actually is so that we can bring you more content. And Lisa's completely on her own. I'm setting her up basically so she can do her interviews and share them with me. And I'm doing my interviews here. But, you know, I've got a situation where we actually have an episode coming up with somebody on tapping. So we're going to be using Zoom. And so we'll release a video on that. And Lisa will be a part of that as well. But we just wanted to get you guys updated on what's going on. Anything you want to say, Lisa? Just
that it's really exciting times, and, you know, the alternative health tools has evolved and grown over the years, hasn't it? And coming into this period now, you know, we're evolving and growing all the time and making it more accessible for people, obviously with the time difference. So being able to host on my own and you being able to host over there on your own, it just, like you said, makes it more accessible for us to interview people and get some more great content out to our listeners.
Very well said. All right, Lisa, I will see you across the pond.
Yeah, virtually for now.
This episode was recorded April 10th, 2020 here in the States. And these are the topics, people, and references we covered today in this episode, which you can find links for at alternativehealthtools.com, episode 94. Meeting Karen on one of Mary Cravet's weekly Zoom calls, Debbie Ford, Marianne Williamson, Carolyn Myss, Spiritual Bypass, Karen's version upgrade to K 2.0, Dr. Herbert Benson on the Relaxation Response, Music is Healing, Music is Medicine, Jason Mraz, EFT Tapping, Karen's accident and her resulting healing journey, Karen's experience with Ayurvedic doctor and the compassionate witnessing presence for the experience another is having, and Karen's top 3 influences and her final thoughts about remaining curious about what might be possible. Visit the episode notes for all the links to everything we covered today, including a link to a YouTube video where you'll experience a complete EFT tapping session with Karen working with our co-host, Lisa Victoria, who's in the UK. And I now bring you Karen Berzanski. So how are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Good.
Having a nice start to my weekend. I took an online live yoga class this morning, which was fantastic.
So how was that?
It was so fun. It's via Zoom, and one of my teachers is doing live classes every weekday from now until we're not sure when. So whenever I can catch that, it's a great reason to get my buns out of bed. So,
oh yeah. Do you need a reason to get out of bed? Is that it?
Well, it's nice to have like a set thing for me to know that I'm attending and that I'm like doing, that's like a good thing for my body.
Yeah.
It helps me just get up a little bit earlier than maybe I normally would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I love being up early. So,
yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I tried to stay up late last night till about 11, hoping to sleep until 6, but I got up at 4. Just seems to be my thing.
Oh, okay, that's early.
Yeah, it is.
Are you meditating at 4 a.m. or?
Usually 5.
Okay.
And or going for walks, but we've had nothing but rain here for the last several days. It just hasn't stopped.
Same. Yeah. It's been cold and rainy for the whole week. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to be looking for a environmental scientist that might be able to explain the nexus between less air pollution, carbon dioxide, and all that kind of stuff going into the atmosphere and its relationship to the rain or the weather.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah,
I hadn't even thought about that, but that's such a great point.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. There's a lot of great things happening with the environment right now.
I know. So have you been enjoying Mary Cravet's class?
I have. Yeah, I'm relatively new to her. A friend of mine introduced me to her and shared some, Facebook videos and things and invited me to a class. And then I did something with Mary, I don't know, a couple months ago when she did like an online series or something. And it was so wonderful. And I just love her energy. And it's been great. And I love the connection right now, to have like a group to just brainstorm with on a regular basis, just to check in.
So do you like the brainstorming on a business level, or would you like, there's several different groups I'm on, I can certainly connect you with.
Yeah, I love the brainstorming. I love just being in community with other business owners and hearing what they're doing. Cause sometimes they're talking about things that hadn't even occurred to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why haven't I done that? Or why didn't I think of that?
So what was your big takeaway from the call yesterday?
Well, I didn't realize how many resources were available for entrepreneurs. So that was really great. And I'm like, oh, I have to go to these websites and do a little bit of research to see, what's going on and what might be available to me if I needed something. So that's great. Yeah. And then just hearing what everybody's doing and hearing their ideas around their businesses is always good too. Because it helps me think of different ideas for my business. So I love that.
So good. We're actually rolling, just so you know.
Okay, great.
So this is Alternative Health Tools, the podcast. We've been around since 2014. So Lisa Thorpe was the host when we started in 2014. She went on for almost a year, and then I picked up everything else after that. And then this last year, I met Lisa Victoria from the UK. We met at a Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce, what's called a First Friday Breakfast. And she was on the table I was at, and I just connected with her. And then she started talking about where she was from. She's from the UK, and she's a health coach. And anyway, I was looking for a host, and she's just been absolutely great growing into the hosting position. And I co-host sometimes, but produce everything. And I just got to thinking, with everything going on with the virus and everything else, that I thought, just let her interview people. I'll interview people here from across the pond and put together some fantastic, resources and interviews, So we're basically all about discovering and sharing new alternative health tools and resources from alternative healthcare practitioners and experts. And that, my dear, would be you.
Cool. Well, I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for asking me to.
Yeah. Well, you emanate such positive energy. I think just being around you would be enough.
Tell that to my clients.
What's that?
I said, tell that to my clients. I'm just going to sit with you for 60 minutes.
Exactly. Well, we'll share this podcast with them and the rest of the world. How's that?
That sounds great. But that is a big part of it, just being present for another person.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking right at you. And yeah. So we're not on video, so people can't see, but there's just this positive energy from this New Jersey girl, which we'll talk about. New Jersey just kind of moved into Southern California. We'll talk about that too. But right now I'm looking at your website, theluckysoul.com, and there's this picture of you kind of looking back. And my first question is, what were you looking at?
I don't know that I was looking at anything in particular in that shot.
So the guy doing the camera said, why don't you look back?
Yeah, move. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So it was just
the title
right on shoulder down the street.
I'm sorry, what?
It was just glancing over my shoulder down the street. And it was in where were we? In Los Feliz, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Your t-shirt says, see it, feel it, love it, be it.
Yeah. I love that t-shirt.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. And your website right on the
Super Love Tees. I think I got that t-shirt on.
Uh-huh. Yeah, your website says you shouldn't have to navigate the challenges of entrepreneurship alone, but you have a lot more going on besides that. And that's part of the reason we wanted to get you on this episode, because I know you do tapping, which I'll want to talk about a little bit later. But first thing I want to know is, how did you get from New Jersey to Southern California besides flying or driving or walking? Did you walk, drive, or fly?
I flew.
Oh, okay.
I found a place in Silver Lake on Craigslist. I shipped all of my stuff across the country. And then like 2 weeks later, I flew and rented a car, and then found my spot in Silver Lake that I had never visited previously, and then bought a car, and then just figured it out along the way.
Yeah. So tell everybody where Silver Lake is.
Silver Lake is in Los Angeles. That's actually not where I live now. I live in West Hollywood. And I chose Silver Lake actually because some of the people that I knew here told me that it was the Brooklyn of Southern California. And I was like, oh, I should do that then. That would make me feel more comfortable. So.
Oh, sure. And then what? You got starstruck and moved to West Hollywood?
Oh, no, actually, well, I wound up in West Hollywood through a series of really weird events. I met this girl and became friends with her. And then my dad actually wound up getting really sick right after I moved here. And I was flying back and forth to New Jersey multiple times. I wound up not really even staying in that place in Silver Lake for very long. And then when I was ready to come back after my dad went through all of his stuff and was declared a WM by the medical community, a walking miracle, I needed a new place. And my friend's roommate was moving out at the time that I was moving back. So I wound up moving in with her, and I lived with her for like 6 months. And then I found the place where I'm living now, which is not too far from where I was in another spot in West Hollywood. So, yeah,
that's good. Good. So fundamentally, you're a coach, right?
Yes. Certified life coach and tapping coach.
Okay. And so you got to Southern California. Did you have all that before you came?
The coaching? No. I moved out here and I didn't know what I was going to do when I moved.
So what was the inspiration to come out here?
Well, I had gone on 2 back-to-back healing related retreats. One at Esalen in Northern California. Then I took a road trip down the coast, spent a week at the Chopra Center, and then learning Ayurveda and whatnot, and a couple more days in San Diego, and then flew back to New Jersey. I was living with my parents at the time because I don't know if you read any of my story on my website, but I was hit and run over by a car in 2008. And I was at a place in my healing journey at that point where I'd been living with my parents for like 2 years. And after that, those 2 retreats, I had a really kind of like aha moment where things really started to open up for me in terms of my healing. And I was ready I didn't know if I was going to move back to the city, New York, Brooklyn, or do something totally different and move to California. And it was one of those moments in time where I was like, well, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I was like, well, I just had this incredible, magical, miraculous experience on this retreat. Like so many serendipitous things happened while I was there for 2 weeks, like one little miracle after the next. And I was like, I just felt like I couldn't get to the point in my healing that I really wanted to in the same place where I was injured. And so I really wanted to take myself out of the environment and start fresh. And also like New York and New Jersey, it felt like around every corner, I was just reminded of like bad things that had happened and the suffering that I went through and all of that. And I kind of just wanted a fresh start. So I made a big leap and I decided to just go for it.
So you basically created Karen 2.0.
Pretty much.
Going forward,
going
forward, I'm going to be calling you Karen 2.0. Right? It'll probably be the name of the podcast too.
You can call
2.0.
me
K2. K2.0.
K2.0. That'll be my next website.
Yeah, really. Well, so when you get off the podcast, go write that article and put it on your website, would you?
Optimal living, healing from the inside out.
Yeah. So I know on the website you talk right up front about no bullshit tools. So we can swear on the podcast.
Yeah.
So
right.
when I read that, it felt like you kind of have had it with a whole lot of bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't. I really got sucked into like the whole positive thinking and affirmations and all of that. Mm-hmm. And there is a time and a place for that. And there's nothing wrong with it. However, it is of utmost importance to acknowledge the quote unquote dark side and all the negative stuff. And if we're not in a space of being able to receive the positive affirmations and all that good stuff, we shouldn't be saying it. You never want to bullshit over the experience that you're actually having. My spiritual teacher, Debbie Ford, who I don't know if you know.
Oh, Debbie Ford, really?
She passed away
awesome.
a few years ago. She used to say it's like putting ice cream on top of poop. Like trying to positive affirmation over, a shitty experience. And it's like, you can't really do that. You're just going to get, poop with ice cream on top of it.
Yeah.
So
I call it denial.
Yeah, it's denial or spiritual bypassing or, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's really important to acknowledge where you are and honor those feelings, whatever they may be. And I found that so much of my stuckness and my self-hatred had to do with the fact that I was just suppressing so much of my humanity in favor of like trying to be divine and perfect. And there was all that perfectionism laced in there and trying to do it right. And that didn't work for me. It only like dug a deeper hole when I tried harder. So it wasn't until I learned how to acknowledge both the dark side and the light side that I started to heal. So that was a really, really big concept for me to get. And it's something, as always, I'm just a student trying to figure it out and practicing along the way. So,
yeah. So you're one of the few people that I perceive that on social media, your website and everything else, there's a whole lot of people in social media that like are run around suffering in their life. And then they hold up the camera and everything is great and take a selfie and you're smiling because where I'm going with this, which is it ain't true.
Yeah.
And so I consider, I'll get into trouble here, but I consider most social media to be fake. I just do.
Yeah. I think we all have to be very careful in terms of, who we're following and what we're believing. Cause it's like, you just never know what's behind the curtain. You don't know if someone with 1 million followers is, $10,000 in debt or $1 million in debt or like has a shitty relation. You just don't know what the stories are. And maybe they're not, maybe they're doing great and maybe that is their life. But I think that there's enough people out there who are showing one thing and being and acting another to, just go on social media with a discerning eye and try not to compare yourself to all the pretty photos and lovely things that we might see, and I'm a big fan of curating your feed. Like if it doesn't make you feel good, if it makes you feel like shit in any way, shape or form, like unfollow, delete, get that shit out of your awareness.
Well, yeah, I found myself last night on my phone, on my Instagram account, just unfollowing a bunch of people because I went, I hit that follow button, not because they had something of value that I resonated with, but that they were friends. And I thought that was the thing to do. So it's like, I might end up with following nobody.
Sometimes that's not such a bad thing.
You know who Edward Snowden is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So
I loved the movie Snowden too.
Yeah. So I don't know, 1.2 million followers, something like that. So the question is, who does he follow? Do you know?
I don't know who Edward Snowden follows on social media.
One property, the NSA. That's it. He doesn't follow anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's when you think about that, that's kind of an interesting notion in terms of, if you just follow one person or one way or one property, how it might change everything that's coming at you, depending on how you're set up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So when you go from bullshit to tools to help you create everything you want in your business. So let's talk a little bit about that and I want to kind of like frame it into a healthy business, because you obviously have a healthy business. And the reason I know is, once again, your energy is infectious. I told you this the other day. So it's like, you got a new business, you got a new program going on. People are just going to pay you to be around you.
Well, thank you for that.
No, I'm not kidding.
That's really nice.
Yeah. So typically, in your business, in terms of coaching people and stuff, does the health issue or the health coaching comes into it as well? Or is it a little part of it, or a part of it when it's needed? Or
Well, I don't coach people specifically around their health. If they happen to get better in a certain area of their lives on a physical level because of some of the work that we do, I don't take credit for that.
Okay.
That could happen. I mean, that's happened for me with the work that I do, for sure. And like, I was working with, for example, a woman who was really working on weight loss issues. And this was like a guest thing that I did in somebody else's community. And I was doing a tapping video on releasing the stress and some of the beliefs that come up around weight loss, which is not something that I specialize in, but I know how to do. And she emailed me after that session and she said, I haven't slept in 15 years and I had the deepest sleep ever after tapping with you yesterday. And she became a client of mine. She was also starting a business. So, we were working around limiting beliefs and all the things that come up around building businesses as well. But sometimes it's just a nice side effect. But I certainly don't take credit for
it. So what was the tapping exercise you took her through? I told you we were going to talk about tapping, and what was the exercise you did? And it's, I don't know. Do you work from the inside out intuitively? Like if that came up, it's like, let's do you have.
I never know where sessions are going to go, which is exciting and completely terrifying. It's kind of like, when you're on stage in improv, I'm like, I don't know where the session is going to go. I'm just going to go with it and we'll see what happens. But sometimes sessions go off into left field and in a direction that I did not anticipate. And I just have to allow the energy to do that if that's where it's going and not try to force it in a direction that I think it should go. So we were just what were we tapping on? This was maybe like 2 years ago. The stress around, just trying to lose weight and then feeling like it's not safe to be at the physical weight that I really want to be at, and all the judgment that I've held around myself and around other people. A lot of times there can be judgment around fit people. And it's like, oh, I think, well, who does she think she is to be, so fit and so, wearing those things and prancing around like she's all confident and stuff. And there's a block because you'll never let yourself become that which you judge. And this is where the dark shadow comes in, where it's like, if I'm judging someone, whether it's for their weight or their wealth or whatever, their confidence, then I'm not going to let myself be that. And so no matter how many attempts at losing weight one might try, if there's judgment around the woman who gets up at 5 a.m. and runs 5 miles every morning, I'm not going to let myself be that because I think she's a bitch. Or I think, who does she think she is? Or I think she's conceited and stuck up. I think she's vain and I don't want to be that. And until I can be with that in myself, I will not let myself become that which I say I actually consciously want, because there's a block in my hidden programming that's telling me that it's not safe to be that.
Nicely put.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the stuff that comes up in tapping, where it's like, oh, I didn't even realize that there was a hidden belief that I think thin women are vain and materialistic. And of course, I wouldn't want to let myself become that. So everything that I would try, no matter what program or whatever, wouldn't work for me, because no matter what, I'm not going to let myself be vain and materialistic. I don't want other people to think that about me. And then it's like, well, then we can go in and look for the gift of vain and materialistic. Well, what are the gifts of vain and materialistic? Well, you get to have a healthy, fit body. You get to wear cute clothes. You get to feel good about yourself, Yeah.
And internal dialogue changes significantly.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Another reason I'm always promoting podcasts. Podcasts are an awesome way to actually put in all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Internal dialogue. You just have that cup of, is that coffee or tea, or what do you drink?
Tea, actually. I was I normally would have a cup of coffee right now, but I'm out of creamer. So I'm not.
Oh, I hate that when that happens.
And I was going to go buy a cup of coffee, and I just didn't. And I was like, well, I guess I'll have tea today.
Well, you can't just go buy a cup of coffee. You have to mask up, and you have to wear gloves.
That's the whole thing. That's why I don't have any creamer right now. And I'm getting an Instacart delivery, and it's not coming till Monday because they're so busy.
Oh, let's talk about that. 3 weeks ago I said, that's it. I'm self-quarantined. I got on Amazon, Instacart, Amazon Fresh, Prime, It's like nobody can deliver for a week and a half. So I'm going, oh, gee, will this carrot last me a week and a half or whatever?
That's exactly where I am. I'm like, how much more frozen broccoli can I really eat?
Oh, I have frozen broccoli too. I have frozen broccoli,
like the frozen broccoli, the pasta, the quinoa. And I'm like, technically I could probably make it like another couple of weeks on like oatmeal and frozen waffles and frozen vegetables. But I'm like, I need something else. My taste.
I know. I was running out of groceries. You should have seen me. Try to visualize this. I'm sitting with my dinner plate and there's one string bean and I'm just cutting and taking a bite and just kind of like enjoying it, and then cutting, taking another bite. And it wasn't that bad, but almost.
I did go to In-N-Out Burger yesterday. That was
I
know because they're still open because of the drive-through, but I still wore my mask and gloves. And then I cleaned everything off when I got home, and I took everything out of the boxes and I sanitized everything and I put everything on real plates. And
good for you. And then you nuke them or heat them up?
I put them in my oven for, minutes. So
yeah.
Good. But it was delicious.
Yeah. That's good. It's important to know that. So I wanted to actually get back to tapping and for those of us, let's say, that don't know actually the origins of tapping and what it really is, what would you say? It's like if somebody said, hey, tapping, what's that? Are you talking about the bugle guy and playing at funerals? No.
It's so cool. More and more people these days have at least heard of tapping. Not that everyone really knows what it is, but I'm less and less surprised when people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Or I tried that once. And I'm like, oh, okay. Tapping is a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure and modern psychology. So we're using the same points on the body that they use in acupressure and acupuncture, but rather than needles, we're using a light tapping sensation on those same points. And it stimulates the energy in the body in the same way. So what we're doing is that we're saying very specific words and phrases around whatever issue you're trying to process while we're tapping on these points. So we're essentially harnessing the wisdom of the mind and the body at the same time. And that's kind of where traditional talk therapy falls short sometimes. And this is why tapping can feel like you're getting such a big release, because you're really moving into like the intellectual part of the issue that you're working around. But then like there's like these energy centers in your body that are opening up, that are allowing you to access, again, that hidden programming that you may not have known was actually controlling your behavior, which is really cool. And it really helps unstuck people once they can start to see that hidden programming and how it's been keeping them safe and stuck. So it really helps to actually release it on a physical level, on a cellular level. And there's been studies that show that like cortisol, the stress hormone in the body, is decreased like 45% when people are tapping. So what tapping is actually doing is it's sending a calming signal to the amygdala in our brain, where that fight or flight center is housed, that alarm center that keeps us in, what I call freaked out brain. And when we're in freaked out brain, we lose all of our resources, we lose our creativity, we lose our sense of grounding and peace. We've all been there. We all go there. We all pass through there occasionally. Tapping sends this calming signal to the brain that tells the amygdala that it's safe to turn off. It's safe to turn off the fight or flight response, turn on what Harvard cardiologist Herbert Benson calls the relaxation response, and what I call peace brain. So I always say tapping takes us from freaked out brain into peace brain. And when we're in peace brain and when that relaxation response is turned on, the body's natural healing mechanisms can do what they're designed to do to help the body actually restore itself to its natural state of, feeling good and wholeness and wellness. And that was certainly my experience with tapping.
Yep. So you landed on a very, very, very important thing that, most people just don't get, that if you give the body what it needs, it will heal itself. It's
amazing. The body knows what to do. We just have to get out of the way.
Yeah. The problem today is that we continue to live in a toxic environment. And the most toxic environment most of us, and I include myself, live in is our house.
Yeah.
So there's been a huge movement for a lot of people. There's a friend of mine, Eric Furman, and his wife, Fernanda, who he and I worked together for several years on water filtration, and actually specifically molecular hydrogen infused water, but really great filtration. And we met because I was able to add hydrogen to his mix, and he was able to make my water cleaner in terms of what I was working with. But he and his wife have moved into this whole thing of cleaning up your house.
Yeah.
So it's like, so anyway, you do give the body what it needs to heal, and it will heal itself.
Yeah.
So yeah. And that includes body, mind, and soul. It's just like, that's why I love podcasting. Once again, it's what's happening internally. So I'm going to put something out here. I usually wouldn't do till after the podcast, and I'd ask you, but can we do a follow-up on Zoom? And actually you just run through some tapping stuff with me visually so that we can show people? Okay, sure. We'll do that. We'll do that whenever you're available. We'll do a follow-up episode.
Okay, separately. Great. Cool. Yeah.
Is there anything like you want to cover? And I have a question for you too. I have two questions actually.
Okay.
So I'm imagining you really love music.
I do actually really love music.
Karen, just so you know, I feel like I have an intuitive connection with you. You love music. I can't take it so far to say exactly who or what. So why don't you tell us who you really love, like right now?
Oh my God, where do I even start?
Well, start with them all, and I'll put together a K2 playlist.
K2 playlist
on Spotify.
Well, first of all, I will say that I was dancing this morning in my yoga class, and we were dancing to everyone from Aretha Franklin to Jerry Garcia to James Brown and a whole bunch of like yoga music, which was super fun. So I love all of that. I love, classic rock, Beatles, Stones, Creedence Clearwater Revival. I love oldies like 50s and 60s music. I love Frank, Ella, Billy. I love cheesy pop music is one of my favorite things ever. I'm a big fan of Meghan Trainor. I don't want to call Meghan Trainor cheesy, but some people, whatever. Meghan Trainor, Bruno Mars. I am dancing all day long. I love Sam Smith, Amy Winehouse. There's so many, and then I love like indie music, like Ingrid Michaelson, Jack Johnson-esque kind of stuff. Regina Spektor. I love Melody Gardot. She's a French singer, so French music comes in there too. Sarah Bareilles. I could take out my playlist and just go down it, but Beach Boys, I mean, come on, everything. Yeah, Aerosmith, AC/DC.
Yeah, so here's a tip for you and the listeners as well. So one of the podcasts I listen to about 15, not every day or anything, but I cherry pick a little bit. But NPR's All Songs Considered.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a music background. I used to produce people and, concerts and all that kind of thing when I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and did a podcast series with Chris Calloway, Cab Calloway's daughter. You know who Cab is?
I don't.
Okay, so you ever see the movie The Blues Brothers?
Yeah.
Remember that guy that comes out in a white tux at the concert and sings Minnie the Moocher?
I don't remember.
That's Cab Calloway.
Okay,
so Cab Calloway, because Chris was Cab's daughter, and Chris toured with Cab for 26 years. But Chris and I and Herbie Hancock, I don't know if you know who that is,
Yeah.
had a conversation one day when I was podcasting with Chris and stuff. He wasn't on the podcast, but basically Herbie said that he credited Cab Calloway as the grandfather of hip hop and rap. So if you get on YouTube and do a search for Cab Calloway, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, so music's always been a big part of me. Yeah. And I studied music in college and pretty serious classical guitarist, but I got started by playing rock and roll and some of the Grateful Dead used to live down the street from me and would rehearse. And then Paul Revere and the Raiders, you ever hear of them? Okay, so they live down the street. So I jumped into a band at the age of 14, on and on and on. So music's been throughout my whole life. It's what I wake up with. I wake up every morning with a song in my head. And sometimes it's a song I've never heard before. So, which is a lot of fun. And I've worked in music a lot. So here's the thing about music. And I get this sense from you is that music is healing. Music is medicine.
Oh my God. It especially, this really, really hit home for me after I was hit by the car. One of the most deeply healing things that I did was when I was really in it and nothing was working and I was completely lost and I just didn't know where to turn, was to listen, just listen. I would literally turn off my lights, light some candles, put in some headphones and listen to music that I loved, whatever was resonating with me at the time. And oftentimes I would take one song and I would just put it on repeat.
Yay.
And I would listen to it over and over and over and over. And it was like a lullaby. And it was the only thing at that time that I felt really helped to.
Can you name one of those songs?
Well, the one I remember specifically, it was, I remember I was in Union Square Park and I had gotten laid off from my job. And this was 4 months after the accident happened. And I was just at the beginning stages of really bad PTSD and chronic pain. And then this was in 2008, recession, blah, blah, blah. And I just remember going to Union Square Park after work and laying on the grass and putting in my headset and putting on I'm Yours by Jason Mraz.
Oh my God.
It was my favorite song at the time. And I just listened to it over and over and over and over for probably an hour and a half before I just decided to get up and walk home.
Awesome.
But there were many songs like that. Yeah.
If you go to Alternative Health Tools, I've done a couple different interviews with Julie Beaton. Okay. So do you know what human design is?
I know of human design, and I keep hearing it keeps popping up in my awareness, but I haven't done any in it.
I don't know what the episode number is off the top of my head because we have 90 now. But if you go to the top right, you can do a search for human design, and the one or two episodes will come up. But she's a really good example of somebody that really knows her stuff, kind of like you. You guys would dance together. Okay. Yeah. So,
dancing.
Anyway, it's a good listen. Actually, we ended up creating a video too of it, where the human design diagrams and stuff were up, and because I had done this audio podcast with her, and after it was all said and done, I thought, why don't we just use the audio as a voiceover and get me the charts, and I'll create a video so people can actually see the charts while you're talking about the charts and kind of like that. But it's something I think you'd really, really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds really cool. It's something that I've been meaning to look
I know
into.
I chunked sideways. I went from music to human design. And I do have a tendency to do that. It's called ADD. And believe me, it's a gift. It's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I know there's so much science on music and the brain. It's really fascinating. And I recently, I've always loved music, but I've never played an instrument. And then about a year and a half ago, I picked up the ukulele, and that's
good.
It's been amazing. It thrills me that I can now play an instrument and sing at the same time. And I never thought I'd be able to do that. And
that was George Harrison's favorite instrument. Did you know that?
Was it? No, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
So sweet. Yeah. So let's talk about the mandala behind you, if that's indeed what it is.
Well, it's a tapestry. I got it on eBay.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I've noticed it before. Yeah.
Everybody seems to like it. I love it. Yeah. I've had it for a long time. Thank you.
So how is it that you arrived at your website domain of theluckysoul.com?
That was in an effort to, on some level, remind myself that I am the creator of my own experience, and that I can take any experience that I am given and alchemize it into something good and give it meaning. And that's what I was attempting to do with the car accident, because I never would have started this business had all of that never happened. And I'm like, if I can take some of that and what I've learned from that and transform it into something that can help other people, well, that makes me feel really lucky that I went through that, even though it was incredibly challenging and difficult. And it's just a reminder that I have, everything I need to get through any challenging situation that ever comes my way. And that's what I want other people to know too, that it's not about the circumstance. It's about how you show up in relation to the circumstance. Yeah.
I've done photography a lot too. So one thing I learned is you don't make excuses for the conditions of the weather, you work with it.
Right. Yeah.
So one thing, part of my connection with you, I think, has to do with understanding. You may have heard this, or maybe you don't know, but you are my perfect definition as a shaman.
Oh, well, that's a very high compliment.
Okay, so forget the title, forget the words, forget comparing all that to the people that you've talked to that paid $900 to go to a weekend workshop and become a shaman. Those aren't shamans. The shaman, my definition of the shaman is the wounded healer. So a lot of the people I interview, and Lisa Victoria, the co-host, is a shaman as well. She is a wounded healer. She managed to heal herself from a condition that traditional Western medicine wasn't able to deal with. They just wanted to put her on drugs and say, you're going to be on drugs the rest of your life. And she didn't accept it. And she went on to heal herself. You absolutely are a wounded healer. And the wounded healer, the other second aspect of it is, not only do you heal yourself, because I know that was a big part of that for you, is that you then turn it around. And your work becomes that of helping other people and servicing other people. Very, very, very powerful, which is what I sense behind your power, which is you were able to just turn it around,
Yeah. And it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of effort. And like your friend who you just spoke about, like I was told the same thing, like, you're going to have to take drugs. You're going to have to have surgery. You're going to have to do this and that. You're never going to, be the same as you were before, which is actually true, but you can be better. And there's post-traumatic growth that can come out of post-traumatic stress. But the way that I healed chronic physical pain was not through traditional Western means, was not through a pill, was not through a surgery. It was through everything else.
Everything else. And I'm sure that palette was very large.
Yeah.
So you found yourself in Carlsbad at the Chopra Institute. Is that right?
Yeah.
I live right down the street from there.
You do? Oh my gosh. I should come visit.
Yeah, you should.
I still keep in touch with I keep meaning to email my Ayurvedic doctor, Dr. Tim Breesky, to see if he's working in the same hospital he was working in and what's going on with him right now. He was one of I call him one of my spiritual change agents.
Yeah. A spiritual change. See, you have a great way of renaming things that actually give it more meaning. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I remember walking into his office, and this was after I just had like a 6 or 7 day retreat up at Esalen and drove down the coast. And I was like really in this open space. And I remember walking into his office and having my consultation with him. And, when you go to a quote unquote normal doctor's office, they talk with you for 5 minutes and they look at you and then they send you on your way. They never actually get to know you. And I sat with Dr. Tim for, I think, over an hour. And I sat there and he held my hand in his hand and looked directly into my eyes the entire time. And I'm like, I have never felt so healed in my entire life. I'm like, he didn't even have to do anything. He just had to be the compassionate witnessing presence for the experience that I was having and bring so much compassion and so much understanding and so much love into that 60, 90 minutes that we spent together. That I was like, well, that was worth all the money that I paid for this retreat. It was amazing.
Yeah. Could we have just gotten to this point and then I wouldn't have to done all the other stuff?
Right.
All right. So I said I had 2 questions. Here's my second one. So despite the accident you had, okay, can you think of another defining moment in your life where kind of everything changed? And let's not include coming to California, because I'm sure that was pretty defining.
Mm-hmm. Where everything changed.
Something that really defined you besides, and if you want to, you know what, I don't want to steer this in any direction, that I think it needs to go. Just what comes to mind, regardless of what it might be.
Well, I feel like, not to bring up another bad thing, but when my dad got sick, I felt like that was a big moment in my life too. It was right after I moved here, and I could have, it was one of those moments in time where I could have just said, I shouldn't be here in California. I should go back to where I was. I should be on the same coast with my family. This was a bad idea. And after all of that happened, it was so obvious that it was now I must move forward. I can't go back to New Jersey. That's not where I'm supposed to be. And it was just this big opening of no, now you get to start your life. Now you get to do what you're here to do, and you get to do it in California. So,
yeah.
And it's been a trip. I thought I'd be here for 6 months, and it's almost 7 years later.
Yeah. So the voice inside you that said you should go back to New Jersey, that's what we call the monkey mind.
Yeah.
It's the mind that will actually go, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to go back to New Jersey.
And to be honest, I had to do a lot of tapping around that, because I was I felt guilty for leaving my family of origin and living a life outside of the kind of life that I perceived them to be leading. Without going into too much detail, it wasn't a healthy environment for me to be in. And I felt like I had, there was this part of me that felt like I'd made a mistake by leaving, and who was I to do that? And, when my family was back in New Jersey living how they were living, and it was very hard for me to learn how to detach with love from that idea and really give myself permission to live life on my own terms, with my own rules, in my own way, in a way that my family would have preferred that I not do. I think my parents would love it if I still lived in my old bedroom, for the rest of my life. So it's taken some time and some energetic processing to be able to really understand that I'm allowed to live the life that I want to live, and my family's allowed to live the life that they want to live, and both of those things are okay. And
you can still be in relationship.
That's right, and I am, and it's great. It's great at 3,000 miles away. It's and I have a healthy relationship with my family to the best of my ability, and I'm at total peace with that. It feels really good for me to be here doing what I want to be doing here, and then going back and visiting when I can, and having the relationship that I have with them now, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like you chose me.
Mm-hmm.
So at the age of, well, I was pretty, at the age of 25, I actually moved to Orcas Island.
Oh.
Like I'm from Portland, Oregon. I don't know if you know where that, Portland,
Yeah.
Oregon. And Orcas is one of the San Juan Islands off the coast of Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a long story. I'll tell you another time. But so I studied for 7 years. I was at the Lewis Foundation studying metaphysics, world religion, and nutrition.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Now, yeah. So there's a kind of a mystical story about how I got there.
Uh-huh.
But, I've got another appointment in 45 minutes. So anyway, so the choice came when I left there to go back to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually had a dream that I woke up at 1:00 in the morning after spending a lot of time with 7 people from New Mexico. And basically, I woke up in the middle of the night with this clear vision of going to the desert. And I chose to go because I knew I couldn't go back home because for me, it wasn't healthy. And it's not because my family were bad people or any of that stuff at all. It was mostly an inside job on myself.
Yeah.
I take responsibility for that. But I moved 1,700 miles away, went to New Mexico and lived there most of my adult life. And there I developed mostly of who I am now after coming from, studying metaphysics and world religion and nutrition. But, lived in Santa Fe to basically create the life I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And now both my parents have passed, but I have really, really a great relationship with my twin sister, which, by the way, we have this, we do this thing every morning where we text each other to let each other know we're alive. So I just took a picture of I've got to text her. I got to show her the picture. She goes, "What are you doing?" "This is what I'm doing."
So sweet.
Yeah. So the point is that I also, when I was really, really young, it's kind of interesting. I was dating this Dutch Indonesian young woman. She had told me that usually in Europe, it's very common when a couple gets married that they both actually move pretty far away from their parents so that they don't, so that they can like carve out their own life.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily agree is the rule to have, but I do understand the wisdom in it.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're at. I feel like maybe it was a similar thing with you and I, where it's just like for our own whole health, we chose us. We chose yourself. You just knew you had to get away from any kind of influence or pull or anything that would keep you where you were. That it was time to explore.
And it's like, it's a brave act. Like I, this is something that often comes up with my clients. Like it's really like that pull that our family of origin has on us is so strong, which is why I think most people never move very far from where they grew up. And I'm like, I don't know if that's because they just naturally want to stay or it's because they haven't been brave and they haven't really honored, what they really want to do. I don't know. I think it's different for everyone. I don't want to make a general giant assumption there, but
yeah, you can't.
Like it's a curious thought that
well, from my perspective, it's as simple as they just haven't chosen or they didn't know they had a choice.
Right.
Everything else is a story I make up about it that I don't really know.
Yeah. But I'm always like in such admiration and awe of people who have gone in a direction that was just like, yeah, this is what I wanted to do. Nobody in my family ever did that. And I traveled around the world or I started this business or I did, X, Y, went and became a circus performer. I don't know. When all my family was we're accountants, it's like, well, that's pretty brave. It's really brave,
Yeah.
So I love hearing stories like that.
Yeah.
I think like if we like that's, I'm not a parent, but like I would always encourage my kid. I have niece and nephews, and I would encourage them to always like follow the leanings of their heart rather than what they think they should be doing based on what mom, dad, society, school, whatever tells them to do. I think that is so important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I follow Seth Godin. You know who he is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he understands education really well.
Mm.
I mean, his whole thing is go make a ruckus, just like you did.
Totally.
Go make a ruckus.
Make a ruckus.
I was going to ask you earlier on, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Do you know the work of Byron Katie?
Oh, yeah.
The work? Have you gone through it much? I've
done a couple of workshops with her. Not her 9-day school for the work, but I've seen her in person a couple of times.
Oh, wow. Yeah. She's still doing live stuff?
Well, not right now.
Well,
no, yeah. I'm pretty sure she still has her school for the work, but I don't know her like speaking schedule right now. Yeah. But her books they're amazing.
Yeah. So right now, what are the top 3 people that you would recommend people sort of play with a little bit? Like for me, it's Simon Sinek.
I love Simon Sinek. I could binge him on YouTube all day long.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a super fan of Marianne Williamson.
Oh, good. Yeah.
She's been a spiritual change agent from afar for me for many years, since 26 years old. I think I first found her. I always encourage people to check out the work of Debbie Ford.
Mm-hmm.
I think Debbie's work is foundational in terms of understanding human behavior, and it's really at the root of all of the global mess that we're in, because it's like, there's just a lot to unearth there. And the third person, let me think. I'm also a big fan of Carolyn Myss. Do you know Carolyn?
No, I don't.
Oh my goodness, she's amazing. She's a medical intuitive, so she can read energy and scan you and like tell you basically what's wrong with you. She really talks about the energetics of healing, has a number of really incredible books as well, and is just one of the spiritual giants, I think, of our time. And she's got a lot of great wisdom around the current situation as well. So and she's got a really kind of like a spitfire personality. So she's fun. She's fun to listen to. She's very, very grounded in what she knows. She knows she's good at it, and she's just a brilliant teacher. I think she's just one of the most incredible women that I've come across in my on spiritual path.
Well, everything we talked about in this episode will be detailed in the show notes. So just for you folks out there, if you're actually listening to this podcast right now, you can go to your podcast player. There should be a tab there to look at the show notes, and I'll put links in. So you can easily get to theluckysoul.com. That would be her right there. And and everything else we talked about. Is there anything else you would like to talk about? And first of all, I want to say is this is not the end. I'm going to want to do this pretty often with you, and probably put it on some of the other channels I have.
Awesome. Well, I'm grateful for that, and I'm totally open to it. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been really fun.
Yeah, good. It's always fun.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
I think we covered quite a bit here.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. I don't know what other directions to go in right now.
Well, I encourage, I would just say, I really encourage people to go to theluckysoul.com and get a hold of Karen, or excuse me, get a hold of K 2.0. Right.
I guess the only other thing that comes to mind is just to keep an open mind about like whoever's listening, like wherever you are right now on your path in your journey, to keep an open mind. That's helped me so much in terms of my own growth and development. Just continuing to be curious about what else might be possible.
Great.
And then just following the breadcrumbs wherever they might lead you.
The breadcrumbs. I love it.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, so for everybody out there, you can always subscribe to us if you like this. And really, most people don't understand this, or know this, but the way people hear about podcasts typically is word of mouth. Very much like, hey, I saw a great movie. Sort of like, hey, I heard this podcast. Have you ever heard Alternative Health Tools? Oh my God, it's sort of like that. So you can also be reached on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. And Karen, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, John.
You're welcome.